Brilliant, brilliant. We are live. We are live. We are live. And Beena, I was just speaking to her, and I said, "Oh, we need to switch to Zoom." And she said, "Okay." And well, I haven't heard anything yet, but I assume I shall. We'll see you in a moment. uh, Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. Uh, I just want to share things real quick. You know, do the sharing from my timeline to the group and so on, and share links. By the way, right? So part of the sharing, what I do is we come on Zoom. From Zoom, we connect via Restream. It allows us to go live on YouTube and Instagram, and well, coming soon on TikTok also. TikTok, you need to have 10,000 followers. On Instagram, it was 1,000. TikTok, for whatever reason, is 10,000. But we're halfway there already, so we're getting there. Anyway, so through Restream, we get to to uh, to be live simultaneously on multiple platforms. It's very cool, right? So right now we're on YouTube, on Instagram, and here on Facebook. But it defaults to sharing it to my timeline, right? And from there, I then share it to the group, because that's where most of stuff is happening, right? And as well, my personal friends, some of them aren't in the group, they will then get a notification, oh, Syl is live. But also, if I share it to the group, yeah, to Sassy group, right, where most of us is taking place, then of course everybody in the Sassy group gets to see the live as well, right? And then I also, and this is the point I want to make. Now, you might be busy, you're doing whatever, and you're not paying attention to Facebook, right? Like my friend Tasava, he's busy working. He owns a convenience store, and so he's not actively searching on Facebook. But I can share the live via Messenger. Then you'll get that ping, that notification sound. Oh, you got the new message. And there will be the link. And then you can tap on that and watch, which he does. He just puts it on, and while he's working, he lets it sit there, and he'll watch and listen, right? Uh, and just a reminder. So if you want this, just let me know. Just message me, and I'll be more than happy to include you. I send that link to Norma regularly because she's in England, and the time zones and things, they shift. And just a reminder, just a reminder. And I'm happy to do this. So just let me know if you would like me to include you in that message notification. All right. So let me go. Yeah. And then also, so I have to share it from my timeline where the Restream and the Zoom, it takes it there, because you can't go directly to the group. I don't know. It's just something that eBay set up for whatever reason. Um, and I send those notifications. But then also what I do, just to add a little extra, I also share it to the Nobelia.org page. Why? Because that is set up, and it takes anything I post there is automatically, right away, immediately, um, um, posted live on the front of the website, right on the beginning there, right on the front page, on the main page. So you get to see that right away, right? And it's kind of cool. So anybody who's hanging out or surfing on the website will see this live right away going there. So it's pretty cool. I do make a post out of the video, and when it's done, that's why we have grain there. You may have noticed it says, right, yeah, it says, I think, I don't know, Syl Sabastian is recording this, learn more grain. So grain is, it also records it, but what it does is it makes for a very nice summary of what's going on. It's set up for business meetings, but it works just as well, yeah. So it gives a nice little summary, which is very nice for the posts. and then it will give you like the key points, right? And it'll give a timestamp. So let's say typically we do these roughly an hour plus or minus, depends. Some days it goes longer, but roughly. Let's say at 45 minutes in, there's a very important key point that I'm making. It will say there at 00:45, and it tells you what this, Syl and Beena discuss death and afterlife and whatever. Right? And then you can just go, if that's what catches your eye and you don't have time to watch the whole video, you can just go directly there. That's very, very helpful. Very, very helpful. It's very nice. So then I make a post that includes that summary, which is very cool. Yeah. And those key points, and just makes it nice. And I share that to my blog, to Substack, and to the website, and the website blog, and all that. And of course, if you subscribe either to my Substack mailing list or to the website mailing list, either way, you will get that in an email, right? If you don't want to be messed about with Facebook and all of this, 'cause a lot of people don't. You can subscribe to the email, and then you'll get that with a video in the email and all the key points in the email. You can watch the video, all this stuff. So very cool stuff. Lots of it, lots of it. And so the sharing, it matters. It's kind of a big deal, right? Uh, how do you search for people to add them to the message now? I somebody just I see. Okay. Somebody just commented on the post I made with my birthday, just saying thank you for all the birthday wishes. And they said, oh, they haven't seen me around for a while. And I'm saying, well, because I'm mostly in the group, I don't interact on my own timeline as much as I used to before. So I said, oh, I'll send her the invite, and I just did. So that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Well, they're not active right now. I think, by the way, just in terms of when most of my friends and most of the group members are active, this time that we do the lives, it seems to be the worst possible time. This is the least or the time when the least people are actually active on Facebook. But that's okay. We're not doing this necessarily for followers or connections and likes. Our main reason for doing what we're doing is sharing. And that sharing, we're essentially sharing with the universe. It is, we're getting practice in articulating, in expressing, in connecting to what is important to us. So it matters not one iota. If anybody watches this, it's not the intent. The intent is learning and growing, as is in everything that we do. And this is just a vehicle, a mechanism, one of the many that we employ, right? Also, it's something that's come about via attunement. And whatever comes about via attunement, this takes on a special energy, right? It has a profound significance. Anything that we are asked or required to do via attunement is very energizing, because we know from experience there is incredible moreness to what is coming our way via attunement, right? It's a fantastic thing. So anything that comes via attunement, we jump on board very eagerly. We surf those waves, right? We align with what comes about via attunement. Attunement is positioning, and then you've got to actually, it's like the surfers, they position themselves to catch the wave. As part of understanding attunement, we make that effort to position ourselves so that you could call those waves opportunity, gifts. When they come along, you can utilize them, but it's optional. You don't always have to catch the wave. We are eager to catch the waves. This is one of those waves. Right? Very simple, very simple. All right, let's keep going, and let's see what's if we see Beena on. If she's active. No, she's not. No. No, something must have happened right there as we switched. Huh. Yeah, wow. All right, well, no worries. We'll continue our reading, and hopefully Beena will join us at some point. That would be pretty cool. Let me just see if there's anybody to say hello to. Not yet. They'll come soon. So brilliant. If you are listening, by the way, on whichever platform you have, in Restream, which is very nice software for this, there's a tab where I click on chat, and if you in YouTube or you're on Instagram or Facebook, and you say hello, then it will show that hello here for me. And since I'm saying hello, I will say hello again. Hello, Moreness. Good Moreness, Moreness. Good Moreness, Moreness.
Good Moreness, good Moreness. Hello, everyone. Oh, sorry for being late. It was like, okay, they are scheduling. They are doing some maintenance in electricity. So it was a temporary thing. And it
I
might
thought
happen
it was,
again, but yeah, but it's
I
still.
thought it was Amy's fault again.
No.
It's now Amy's fault. I'm just teasing Amy. I like teasing Amy. Yeah. I like teasing Beena too. All right. Well, let's get going. Pause, stop recording, but I want to share. That's what I want to do. We are continuing with our capital R reading of Carlos Castaneda's books. We're going to read the entire series. And this is easier said than done. It's 14 books. But we've been going through this first one, and it's fairly short, fairly quick going, but the other books are going to have much more of actual real value, and so it's going to be, it's a lot to do. You'll see, there's a lot to do. Anyway, we on the end of the book, which is Carlos's structural analysis, as he calls it, right? And it's basically half the book almost. And it's very academic because this was his master's or doctorate thesis for his anthropology degree. And that's, well, you'll see. Anyway, so we're just getting through it, right? And we're on this part now. If we scroll up a bit here, the last part of the structural analysis is called the conceptual order. And Carlos is not quite, he doesn't quite grasp conceptualizing and the value of it. So he's on the right track, but you'll see it's a bit rough. So we started with the apprentice, and let's continue over here, right? It says, right? You want to read, please, Beena? Beena, you muted.
Yes, I'm busy. I'm busy responding to YouTube and sharing
Okay.
on
Okay.
Instagram.
Okay. Okay. Well, while you do that, as soon as you're done, let me know, and then you switch over. I like what Beena reads. And beside which, when
Okay.
Beena first started, right, the reading was not smooth. Let's just say it that way, right?
Yes, yes,
Right.
yes.
And just
It's
Beena is
still.
continue to practice. And
Oh,
reading
yes,
is a very particular awareness skill.
yes,
You'll notice this when Carlos defaults to using that inadvertent misogyny of just saying he, right? When he's
yes,
talking about an apprentice, he just says he as a default. Yeah. And when we read, we don't read that he, because I don't want to perpetuate this inadvertency. Yeah. So I read it as they,
yes,
right? I change that. And that means in order to do that, right? If I'm reading here, taking into account, right? I'm not actually looking there. When you hear taking into account, my eyes are over here, right? So my eyes are going
mm,
ahead of my speech. That gives me that microsecond, which I see the he. All right, let's take this sentence now. Watch. I haven't read the sentence before, but I just noticed that there's got this he's in it, so I'm just going to see, right? So I'll change it then. Taking into account then
mm.
that the apprentice's goal consisted of adopting that order of conceptualization, they had two alternatives. They could either fail in their efforts or they could succeed. Now, I didn't rehearse this, I didn't practice, I didn't stumble, I didn't falter, I didn't pause to switch he into they. Yeah, and there, right? So how did I do this? My eyes were ahead of my speech. a very particular skill for reading. Now, in this case, when we are looking to change the gender here, right? It's very helpful. But also, if you are reading anything, different things have different moods. And you don't always know what that mood, that energy is in order to read it appropriately, rather than just reading it all in the same way, right? If you want to do add a bit of extra to your reading. And as part of Moreness-Culture, we always looking to extend ourselves, to enhance our skills. So when we do reading, we automatically learn and grow to improve our reading ability. And part of reading is to add appropriate mood to it. There's also more than appropriate mood. Okay, I'll give an example, right? So my bigger point here is that when Beena is reading, we are practicing all of this. Me too, yes. We're practicing different skills. Now, of course, for me,
Yes.
English being my native language, it's easier, right? Beena, it's not. And when I first met Beena, yes, she could speak English, but she wasn't fluent. Now, Beena, despite the odd grammatical oddity, that's just idiosyncrasy, really. But Beena is exceptionally fluent in English. Beena can elucidate, and not many people can, whether they're English speakers or not. In any language, few people can elucidate, because they don't have the conceptionality. They don't possess a language of conceptionality. You need that in order to be able to elucidate. So Beena has become very fluent. Why? Because we constantly practice. Constantly. Constantly, right? All right, so I want to give an example furthermore of what we're doing when we are practicing our reading, yes? I'll give you an example if I read without adding any moreness to it, yeah? Never mind extracting the moreness, which is capital R reading. I'm just talking about regular reading, right, as a skill, right? So if you've written an audiobook and you go to a professional audio recording book reading artist, right? Somebody who is skilled at reading your book, whether it's a story or nonfiction, they're going to bring more. And I want to illustrate a little bit what that more is. First, I'm going to read this next section here. Well, I don't know if I'll read all of it that way, but I'm going to read it just directly, just reading what it says, right? Here we go. The first alternative, failure to adopt the conceptual order, meant also that the apprentice had failed to achieve the operational goal of the teachings. The idea of failure was explained in the theme of the four symbolic enemies of a man of knowledge. It was implicit that failure was not merely the act of discontinuing pursuit of the goal, but the act of abandoning the quest completely under the pressure created by any of the four symbolic enemies. Now, I'm reading that, but I have no idea what was said there, because I'm simply reading. It's actually quite difficult for me to do, by the way. So if you said to me, why did you just read Sullivan? I don't know. Because I'm not reading with the intent to understand. I'm not reading with the intent to connect, and I'm not reading with the intent to communicate my understanding or the understanding, or to communicate what is being said, right? That requires emphasis and shifting. And also, you want to not only read with an attempt to be able to communicate what you're reading for the listener, but you also want to make it interesting, which means that you add some variance and you add emphasis in different ways. You change the pacing, all sorts of different things that you can do to make it interesting, right? So even though it's nonfiction, and in this case, it's boring academic stuff, right? And he's saying stuff in a very convoluted way sometimes, like, seriously, Carlos, right? But let's continue reading, and let's make it a little bit more interesting. Let's practice our reading skills, right? Yes, you could say it goes into capital R reading, but capital R reading is about connecting to moreness in the text itself, in the greater work, and also what is implied, what's not said, right, in all sorts of ways to connect more. History, cultural environment, or just what comes up into us, what's stimulated and what's connected to in our brains, what's associated, and we share that, right? All of this is part of capital R reading. it's connecting to moreness, right? However it comes. But in this case now, I'm just
Yes.
talking about regular reading and the moreness involved in skilled professional reading. Yes, so professional
Oh,
reading.
yes.
Yeah, yeah, very cool. All right, so let me see. Where was I now? Well, I'm just going to have to read a start because otherwise,
Okay.
before I read and I didn't know. I'm gonna continue on this. I'm gonna reread what I read because when I read it, I had no idea what I was reading. Right.
Okay, I'm
So,
reading. I'm reading. I'm reading
well,
now.
hold on, Beena. Hold on. I want to reread it again and read a
Okay.
bit because I'm saying I want to demonstrate the difference. That's what I was busy saying, right? So if you read, then I'm
Yep.
not able to demonstrate the difference, right?
Okay.
So now I'm going to read it with looking to read it as professionally as I can. The first alternative, failure to adopt the conceptual order, meant also that the apprentice had failed to achieve the operational goal of the teachings. The idea of failure was explained in the theme of the four symbolic enemies of a man of knowledge. It was implicit that failure was not merely the act of discontinuing pursuit of the goal, but the act of abandoning the quest completely under the pressure created by any one of the four symbolic enemies. The same theme also made it clear that the first two enemies, fear and clarity, were the cause of a man's defeat at the apprentice's level. That defeat at that level signified failure to learn how to command an ally, and that as a consequence of such failure, the apprentice had adopted the conceptual order in a shallow, fallacious manner. I have to pause here for our capital R reading. But you see what I was doing there? I was emphasizing on certain words. I changed the speed, the pacing very slightly, not suddenly reading fast, slow, but very slightly. And it just makes listening to the whole thing more interesting. Now, he's saying quite a few important things here. Those four enemies of a man of knowledge: fear, clarity, power, and old age. He's saying the first two, you're failing at the apprentice level. And well, the third one, you're failing at a graduate level. I don't know what he's going to call it, but at least, you've become a person of knowledge, more or less. And then the fourth one, you can't really do anything about, right? However, he makes a mistake here, an assumption. He's saying that you failing because you weren't able to, signified failure to learn how to command an ally. He's under the mistaken belief that you have to have an ally in order to be a man of knowledge. And that's not actually so. In Don Juan's experience, it is common and typical, but not necessary. And he even says so, right? But Carlos misses that point. He believes it's absolutely essential to be a man of knowledge. He's confusing sorcerer with man of knowledge. Yeah. And even a sorcerer doesn't have to have an ally, they can just have a helper on the other side, right? But one of the two is what really defines you as being a sorcerer. And even then, technically, you could say, well, you don't really have to have that, but you're going to be a bit of a weak and feeble sorcerer if you don't have it. Yeah? So it's important to understand here. All right. Let me just read to the end of this long paragraph, Beena. That is, their adoption of the conceptual order was fallacious in the sense of being a fraudulent affiliation with or commitment to the meaning propounded by the teachings. The idea was that upon being defeated, an apprentice, besides being incapable of commanding an ally, would be left with only the knowledge of certain manipulatory techniques, plus the memory of the perceived component elements of non-ordinary reality. But he would not identify with the rationale that might have made them meaningful in their own terms. Now, there's he actually saying something important that he doesn't quite realize. Again, conceptionality. Understand this overall. Have a clarity of intent. When you have clarity of intent and you're paying attention, you automatically get into the rationale of things. Because you are looking with clarity of intent, not just your intent, but the intent of the world, the universe of attunement, the intent of the things that you're involved with. Yeah? See? So, intent is in everything. This is what life is. We are materializations of intent. Yeah? So it's important point here. Very, very important point. But again, Carlos isn't fully, he sort of grasps onto things, which is fascinating. But, he doesn't quite get the fullness of it. Right? He's not into that habit of thinking things through to the end. and perspective shifting to multiple perspectives, right? Because he's got other agendas going on, yeah, in his life, and they really confuse him. He doesn't have clarity of intent, yeah. Under these circumstances, any person might be forced to develop their own explanations for idiosyncratically chosen areas of the phenomena they had experienced. And that process would entail the fallacious adoption of the point of view propounded by Don Juan's teachings. Fallacious adoption of the conceptual order, however, was apparently not restricted to the apprentice alone. In the theme of the enemies of a man of knowledge, it was also implicit that a person, after having achieved the goal of learning to command an ally, could still succumb to the onslaughts of his other two enemies, power and old age. In Don Juan's categorization scheme, such a defeat implied a person had fallen into a shallow or fallacious adoption of the conceptual order, and had the defeated apprentice. Right? This is important here. This is important here. The successful adoption of the conceptual order, on the other hand, meant that the apprentice had achieved the operational goal, a bona fide adoption of the point of view propounded in the teachings. That is, his adoption of the conceptual order was bona fide in that it was a complete affiliation with, a complete commitment to the meaning expressed in that order of conceptualization. In other words, to say the long things, don't do things half-heartedly. If you're going to do this, you've got to do it thoroughly. That's just part of impeccability, right? So he's saying conceptual order, bona fide, a lot of fancy words to make this all sound important. But you can't do this thing half-heartedly. That's really what he's saying, yes? Very simple. Don Juan never clarified the exact point at which, or the exact way in which, an apprentice ceased to be an apprentice. That's because you're a perpetual apprentice. In any system, they've been dropped there. In any system, you're always learning. You know, Tom Brady, right? The most successful quarterback in the history of American football, yes, by quite a considerable margin. Yeah, and he won the Super Bowl. I believe he was 41. I know it was over 40. 41 or 42 the last time he won the Super Bowl, and then he retired shortly after that, right? But on asking this, right, when he was at a press conference, and I believe he just turned 40, and the press were asking him, yes, but why do you continue playing? You've got all the success. You've already won the Super Bowl 6 or 7 times, whatever it was, 8 times, I don't know. At that point, he'd already won it a bunch of times, and he was already the most successful quarterback ever, right? And he said, but I'm only just now beginning to really learn about what it is involved to be a quarterback. This is at age 40 in the game, which is, considerably past when typically quarterbacks have already retired. He's already won more Super Bowls and, conference championships, etc., than any other quarterback. And he says, I'm only now really starting to learn. Think about that. Think about that. Most successful guy in that field ever. And he says, when he's at retirement age, he says, I'm only now just starting to learn. This is expertise. This is when you really get into things. There's always more. Right? This is Moreness-Culture, to understand that we explore and we get to more. And then there's even more on top of the more, and even more on top of that more. And it never really ends. Right? It's a fantastic thing. It's a fantastic thing. Yeah? And beside which, when we get to that point of moreness, circumstance, life changes, and we shift to learning something else. So we almost never get to finish, really. Yeah. But that's marvelous, because this keeps life full and fantastic and awesome. It's very, very important. So that's why, he's saying here where Don Juan never really defined exactly, because there is no hard and fast transition point. This is an artificial thing from our artificial education system, or you write a test and now you're official. Nah, come on. Anybody who's ever had any sort of a degree knows that you learn on the job. You keep learning. You never stop learning. Whatever your skill is, doesn't matter what you're doing. You're always learning. If you stop learning, you're not going to be in business very long or in your profession very long, right? Yeah. Yeah. Very, very, very important. Very, very, very important. Seems like I got a visitor. Oh, okay. Yeah, my electricity is not working properly. Hey, that you, Danny? You're checking on electricity, right? Yeah, yeah. No, I've got power. If you look on the switch there, I'm busy doing a live now, so I can't come out. It's only the two outlets that aren't working. The main power works. Yeah, it's very weird. It's very weird. The two outlets aren't working. I think that
20, right?
correct. Danny, if you want, if you want to open that screen door, I want to give you a lamp if you want to test it.
Oh, no, okay.
You got something to test with? Okay. All right. I'm doing a Facebook Live right now, so I can't come out there. But you can test it and see. So
Yeah, I'm sure it's a 30 amp breaker.
correct. I mean, it clicks on, but I think it's failed. Right. The 120. Correct. Yeah. All right, man. All right. Sorry about that on the live there, but when things come, you got to deal with them. All right. Don Juan never clarified the exact point at which, or the exact way in which, an apprentice ceased to be an apprentice, although the allusion was clear that once they had achieved the operational goal of the system, that is, once they knew how to command an ally, they would no longer need the teacher for guidance. The idea that the time would come when the teacher's directions would be superfluous implied that the apprentice would succeed in adopting the conceptual order, and in doing so, they would acquire the capacity to draw meaningful inferences without the teacher's aid. Insofar as Don Juan's teachings were concerned, by the way, another logic flaw here. Carlos assumes that when you no longer need the teacher, you graduate. You're no longer an apprentice. No, you're just learning from a different source. Doesn't mean you graduated at all, right? But this is that thinking. Really, when in this type of stuff, you start, you learn, and you know nothing, and then you just continue learning. And the more you know, the more you realize, and the more aware you are of how much you don't know. I call it the inverted pyramid of knowledge. It's like you've got this pyramid on top of your head that's upside down, right? An inverted pyramid. And it's like this big funnel, and all of the stuff you learn gets thrown in there. But as you learn, that pyramid fills up, right? Because it's the more it fills up, the more there is, right? Because it's a pyramid or a funnel, right? So when it's at the bottom and you got a little in there, well, it's not very much, but a little more, and it's not two, it's 2, 3, it's exponentially more. So this is what it is. The more aware we are of how much we don't know, the more we learn, the more aware we become of how much more we don't know than we thought we didn't know before, right? Because you suddenly become aware of how much more there is to know. Very important. So it's ongoing learning. We are perpetual aspirants. Yeah, Danny? No, it's okay.
But I'm going to have to, I can't do this when you're online, because I have to unplug all the cords.
I got you.
I have to unplug everything.
Yeah.
Take the face of the box off so I can change the breaker.
Okay. Hang on. Are you going to go?
Right now.
All right. So then I'll just wrap it up and end it. And then when you come, you can do that. So no problem. Yeah. All right. I'll keep going until Danny comes back again. Yeah, I am. All right. Very cool. At least it gets fixed. So that's very cool because, I'm able to bypass it, but I can't put my air conditioner on, which, even though it's September, it's still hot. All right, to continue. Insofar as Don Juan's teachings were concerned, and until I discontinued my apprenticeship, the acceptance of special consensus seemed to entail the adoption of 2 units of the conceptual order. 1, the idea of a reality of special consensus. 2, the idea that the reality of ordinary, everyday consensus and the reality of special consensus had an equally pragmatic value. This is something that really messes with Carlos's head, that you can get actual pragmatic value out of non-ordinary reality. Value doesn't care where it comes from. It's like saying you can't get value out of stories, fictional stories. Huh? Of course you can get value out of it. It doesn't mean that, because it's about abstract conceptionality. Just because the author didn't specifically intend and mean that doesn't mean I can't get value out of it. Of course you can. Right? This is just capital R reading, perception, understanding, awareness, right? I see characters interacting in a very fictional way in a story. And I say, wow, okay, I can see how that's possible, plausible. And that gives me an insight into psychology, right? Even though it's not something I typically experience in my life, or might never experience, or it might not even happen, I see how it could be. And in that could, it's an exploration, it's an understanding, it's a depth. Yeah. So very important, very important, very important. So reality of special consensus. So all of this conceptual order, there's little actual value in this because it's so convolutedly written, and Carlos is missing a lot of the points, and he's looking to make it sound important, so we miss a lot. And there's little value here, but I read it just to get through it. Reality of special consensus. And also Carlos is trying to patch up his cracked worldview. That's the whole big deal here. That's why all this is here. Let me just check something real quick before I continue. Oh, it's a pity Beena dropped again. There's Lubna and Elise Sugar. Hello, hello, hello. And Anchor of Hope's Sober Living. Wow, interesting name. Anchor of Hope, Sober Living. Yeah, Anchor of Hope, Sober Living. Yeah, when you have an S in your name, and it can make a plural or not, then it's like, when Syl Sabastian, whatever goes before it. Like for the book publishers, they made a page called Author Syl Sabastian. But if you don't know, you can read it as Authors Syl Sabastian. So hello, everybody. Love that you're here. Love that you're here. Today is not entirely representative of what we normally do because we're going through this technical stuff. But it's kind of interesting still. Joseph says, all right, hello, Joseph. I'm glad you're here, mate. Glad you're here. Joseph says, an interesting point about your analogy about pyramids is in the way you said your inverted pyramid gets bigger upside down. There are fewer people at your level. A regular pyramid on its base is where everyone is born. Yeah, well, I'm talking about, using it as an analogy for information, knowledge, awareness, right? And it's filling up inside there, kind of pouring down into us. And because there's only so much that can come into us at a time, that inverted pyramid or funnel fills up more than we can process. But you're aware that that's there. And the more aware you are, the more you're aware of how much there is that you don't know. So really, when we say, look at the pursuit of awareness and connection to knowledge and understanding, we kind of become percentage-wise more ignorant as we go along. In one way of looking at it, right? At least in our internal perception. I mean, we aren't actually technically more ignorant. We are more aware. We are more knowledgeable. But we can easily feel like we are less because as a ratio, what we aware exists compared to what we know is continually smaller. Yeah. So it's just an idea to visualize the accumulation of awareness or knowledge, right? That it's in this pyramid and it's all kind of pouring in there, and as you grow, that fills up more and more, and the more it fills, the more you realize, wow, there's the more you know, which is it filling up, the more you realize how much there is to know. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So, I try not to think in terms of levels, Joseph. I know it's part of our language. I know it's part of our learning, but I make a lot of effort not to think that way. Because the moment you start thinking levels, you're bringing a hierarchical structure into things. And now you bring all sorts of other problems from superiority paradigm. I don't want to do that. And also, if you have this as part of the system, right, then you can put people of learning, and I've seen this time and time and time and time again, yeah, where people come into a system and they think in this level way, and oh my goodness, everybody else is so far ahead of me, I'm not even going to bother because I'll never catch up. And they don't understand exponential learning. They're only thinking linear learning, right? Well, if you're behind linearly, of course you never catch up. But if your learning is exponential, right, you can catch up very quickly. Especially since with learning, when you have increased your learning and you have well, let's say you're expert in whatever thing. Tom Brady, when he started as a quarterback, he was learning tons and tons and tons every day. Yes, he says, I'm only really starting to learn there at age 40. Yeah, it was there where he shifted from playing for the Patriots to the Buccaneers, I think it was. Now he says, I'm really starting to learn, but the speed and the quantity is considerably different. So any new quarterback is going to be learning at a faster rate, right? And so where they can catch up more or less. Maybe they not quite ever get to where Tom is, or maybe towards the end of their careers they will. But it doesn't matter, because once you've taken that exponential curve and you get towards the top, now percentage-wise, it's not a great difference. It's not the difference between an expert and a novice, because we can exponentially come to be expert relatively quickly. So at the end of the day, like in Moreness-Culture, like on Nobelia, they don't ever consider this in terms of levels, in terms of where you at, novice, because they understand we are all always novices. We're all apprentices. Doesn't matter how much we know, right? And when you share in that way, and you say, yeah, but what do I have to offer? Again, this is contractual thinking. Yes. All right. So let's say I'm expert in some point, some understanding, some ability, some skill. All right. Let's take golf. Yeah. I actually had this in golf. Yes. I used to be an exceptionally good golfer. I probably could be still if I went and played, but I don't play much anymore. At any rate. Now, being an exceptional golfer, when you go, it doesn't matter, whatever your level of skill golfer is, especially if you, like me, if I played a lot on my own, right? You go to the golf course and say, hey, you show up there and you go to the pro shop and they organize a tee time for you, right? The next available tee time. And since I played as a single, they put me in with a twosome or a threesome or maybe another single, right? They usually try and fill up the tee times, right? So they put you in with a twosome or a threesome so that you're utilizing your course, which means that I'm playing with people that I don't know, never played. Well, if it's like in the course where I played regularly and I was a member, then often I would know the people. But the point I'm making here is I'm playing with golfers of all skill levels. Now, here's the interesting thing. Almost all golfers, they want to play with really good golfers, right? So when you come and they see you, after you play a little bit, and they may ask, oh, what's your handicap? And you say, and, it's a very low handicap or whatever. And, or they see how you play. They love this. But at the same time, they're also uncomfortable. And as much as they want to play with skilled players, they are also uncomfortable. When they hit a bad shot, they apologize, etc. And they make the experience much less enjoyable. I know you've got to learn. I don't care. I just want to play happily. The more you apologize, the more you're awkward for making a mistake, the more you reduce the experience. Why? Because they're thinking levels and they have to apologize. And it's all this whole hierarchy thinking. And it really, I much preferred playing on my own, unfortunately. Now, occasionally you'd get somebody who didn't care and they just played however they played and they didn't apologize for their shot because they knew that, hey, you know what, I've got more to learn. I don't have the time, the energy, the incentive, and I play and I enjoy playing and I hit bad shots and so what? I don't even think of them as bad. They don't go where I want to go and that's just it. And then you play from there, different mindset. But I'm making the point that if we put this stuff in levels, it tends to deteriorate or diminish or contaminate and pull down the joy that we have of playing. Now, on Nobelia, since they're into learning and growing, if we get into it, if the person's open to it, then they learn from the person who's more skilled. And likewise, the person who's skilled, if the person is open, they'll share and say, they'll share what they're doing, then the other person can learn from it if they want to. Right? There's many different ways you can play. But just because we're not on the same level doesn't mean we can't enjoy playing together. No, you can, right? Yeah. So and there's much value in sharing, right? To somebody who doesn't know, and you sharing. I learn when I share. Let me make this very clear. I learn when I share. When I'm explaining how to play golf to somebody, and as good a golfer as I was a scratch golfer when I was playing, right towards the end there. Yeah. However, I'm a much better golf teacher. Why? Because I understand conceptionality. Almost all golfers, right? They play poorly because they are conceiving of what to do incorrectly, inaccurately, inefficiently. Their conceptions are flawed. So what they think they're trying to do cannot actually be done. It's quite fascinating. Quite fascinating. So all I do is, as a golf instructor, is I share the appropriate conceptionality, and then the game improves like crazy. Right? Very, very important. Yeah. So this is a big deal. It's a big deal. But of course, when I am sharing, when I'm doing golf instruction, I learn. Because whenever you're sharing, you're also learning, because you're adding to your understanding, you're adding to your awareness, you're adding to your ability to express, your ability to communicate. And you're lighting up those nodes in your brain. And that allows you to connect to more. And so you learn more. That's like the Tom Brady analogy, right? Very, very important. Bad superiority versus intrinsic superiority. Although I understand your point, and at one time I would hardly agree with you. Now I can't put Hitler's ideology on a par with yours. No. This is absolutely, and Hitler's ideology is completely about the superiority paradigm run amok. In my ideology, it's not even an ideology, there's a difference, Joseph, right? And ideology is based on ideas and beliefs. What I'm sharing is not. It's based on self-evident sensibility, which is a profound paradigm shift. That's why I keep saying, don't believe a word I say. Don't believe a word I say. Take each conception. That's why the dictionary of power is a dictionary of power, not a dictionary of beliefs, a dictionary of ideas. No. It's a dictionary of power. Why? Because every entry in there is based on self-evident sensibility. All you need to do is think it through to the end, and perspective shift to multiple perspectives. Yeah? Multiple perspectives allows us to see the greater whole that is comprised of the awareness of all the individual perspectives, right? Like understanding the inside of the house by looking through the windows. One window, you can't know what's it in, but multiple windows, you can put it together, you can construct it, right? Through logical inference and deduction, etc. Right? So you can get to that more that you could get to limited perspectives. So this is why it's so crucial. And of course, thinking it through to the end, you are making sure that you get all those perspectives, right? So the two work very, very put together. So yes, my ideology is not an ideology. It's a way of thinking, a way of being, a way of living. It's not an ideology. And like I said, it's a different paradigm shift to ideologies. Yes, there are ideals involved, but pursuit of an ideal is not necessarily an ideology. If your ideal makes sense and it's intrinsically sensible, then it's no longer an idea. Yeah? It's just a valuable ideal. So yeah, a little different, yeah. But again, it's to compare things. It's not necessarily a negative, Joseph. It's in this case, right? I mean, there's not a similarity to what I was saying when it comes to saying people have levels of awareness, right? You at this level and that level of awareness. The problem is when we do levels, it may be accurate, but it implies a comparison which, if you're still stuck in the default thinking, that comparison becomes negative to you. And when you're at the lower levels, superiority paradigm says you've got to feel bad, you're hopeless, you're a loser, blah, blah, blah. And it has a massive negative association. Now, it's accurate, potentially, but I avoid it simply because of this default in assumptiveness that goes hand in hand with it. And that can unmotivate people to learn because they don't want to be a novice, they don't want to be ignorant, because they have this association, a negative association with that concept, which makes it negative to them. It's an artificial thing. Yeah, in Moreness culture, being a novice is seen as a wonderful thing. Yeah, I share this with people playing video games, right? The modern video games like MMOs, etc. They are incredibly complex. You want to be really top level expert at, well, most people know of World of Warcraft. It's no longer the major dominant game, but still it has a lot of legacy history. You're basically going to have to study that game for the equivalent of a university degree. Yeah. It'll take you multiple years to really become expert at that. So as a result, obviously, most people who play it, they don't have the time to full-time study this like you would if you were doing a university degree. They can play maybe 1 or 2 hours a day, and that's it. So they never really ever get to know the game fully. They never get expert at it. But here's the point. Everybody's trying to be. They think that the joy and the intent of playing the game is to have fun. They assume you need to be expert to get joy. And actually, the reverse happens. People end up losing their joy of playing the more expert they have. Being a novice, exploring and having that wonder and eagerness and moreness, right? This is a fantastic way to be. Everything is new, everything is fresh. That's the time when you enjoy the game the most. The veterans, they become jaded, right? And then they lose that. So when we understand this and we maintain that novice perspective deliberately, it changes. That's Moreness culture. I have to wrap it up. Beena, I'm glad you're back. The people from the park are here to take care of my breaker box. The one breaker is defective and not working. So obviously my power is going to be
Wow,
disconnected.
same here.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh wow. Oh wow. Oh wow.
Same.
Oh wow. Baldur's Gate. You play Baldur's Gate, Joseph?
Yeah,
I don't.
because I told you that they are doing some maintenance work.
Yeah. Wow. Wow, brilliant. All right, so I'll see you guys all again. And hello, Duskatari and Lubna, and Elise joined us, everybody at Anchor of Hope, Sober Living. Yes, now we practice sobriety, not in the alcohol sense. Part of the way of impeccability is to develop our sobriety, which means looking at things from a super sensibility point of view. All right, I better go. All right, so bye-bye, everybody. Let me just end this here, and then
Yes.
I'll say goodbye. Yeah, Danny comes.
Yes.
So, all right,
Okay.
bye-bye,
Okay.
everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.
We'll see you all tomorrow. All right, I'll see you on the phone, Beena. Okay. All right, all good, Danny. All good. Yes, perfect timing. Perfect timing. All right, yeah, I'll be out there in a second. Yeah. All right. She don't bother me.